Playing Paradise Killer is kind of like having a bad trip. Tolerable at first, it inevitably spirals into an inescapable abyss of anguish. To be proud to put your name on this jizz stain in the history of gaming, you'd have to be either delusional or several days into a crack bender. So perhaps this is a feeling that developers are familiar with. Whatever they were on, the developers were probably shipping it out with their review copies. Fucking 9 out of 10s everywhere. It must have been some bloody good stuff, better than the bicarb-laced crap we get in this arid prison colony located 4 inches from the sun we call Australia. The only other explanation is that all the mainstream gaming reviewers share a group chat. Every time a new game comes out, they elect someone to play and form the one opinion all reviews will reflect. Why would they do this? Well, obviously, free time for orgies with their elaborate Funko Pop collections. Well, something. Why does Occam's razor always have to ruin the fun? Conspiracy theories aside, Paradise Killer is more evidence that the gaming review sites are now merely a circle jerk of spineless yes men afraid some big dick publisher will blacklist them for having the wrong opinion. I was a little nervous calling a universally praised game a cum stain in gaming history, lest my wrong thing make me the internet whipping boy for the day. I quickly realised, however, I was deluding myself after a brief glance at my subscriber count. Seeking some online validation for my contradictory opinion, I found many comparisons to Return of the OBRA DINN, another open-world detective game, the same genre as Paradise Killer. Except it's not. I don't think it can be much less open than being stuck on a boat in the middle of the fucking sea. Creating an open-world detective game is hard at the best of times, but Paradise Killer goes for a full-on YOLO, Breath of the Wild, open as your mum's cunt style of open world. The excessive freedom takes away any control the game had over the narrative, pacing, or story structure. Pretty important shit in a detective story. In true dramatic irony, everywhere Paradise Killer fell short, OBRA DINN would excel. Paradise Killer begins by slapping you in the face with an absolute monster of an info dump. I waded through and somehow deciphered a forest of jargon. Let's see, we've got the main character's backstory, why the world was created, and the meaning of fucking life. OBRA DINN also had an opening paragraph. It's brief and to the point. You're on a boat and weird shit might happen. Look, I get it, Paradise Killer. Obviously you've thought long and hard about the world you're creating and want to show it off, but please, keep it in your pants. You've already divulged several answers to questions I haven't asked yet, and considering the dialogue's as stale as a Jimmy Fallon bit, maybe you could expand the world through character interaction. A backstory or something? And I don't mean handing me a gibberish-filled Wikipedia article on each character's past. I know you were thinking it. Talking to the NPCs in Paradise Killer felt like exactly that. You ask them who they suspect, if they have an alibi, the usual detective fare. The hook is, to solve the crime, you have to cross-examine the evidence yourself. While the concept sounds fun, surprisingly having all the characters serve as nothing but exposition vending machines drains them of any personality. By being conveyed through dry character recollections, the story became totally unimmersive, a stark contrast to OBRA DINN's masterclass on show-don't-tell storytelling. OBRA DINN sees you travel back in time to the moment of each crew member's death aboard a mysteriously abandoned boat. Your goal? To discover the identities of all 60 deceased and how they died. The only dialogue composes of a few words from the crew prior to each scene. Yet I deducted more about what the fuck was happening in OBRA DINN in the first 5 minutes than in the entire 6 hours I tolerated Paradise Killer. OBRA DINN's world building is also superior. At one point, for example, some horrific sea monsters just fucking show up. No immediate explanation needed, one which would have totally ruined the mystery behind the creature. Paradise Killer, of course, would have told you how quirky these creatures are, what their origin story is, and that they ate beans on toast for breakfast while never actually showing you the monster. I can ignore a bad story if the gameplay is decent. However, what I can only describe as a collect-a-thon forgot that rewarding the player for exploring is what makes said exploring fun. Out of the seemingly thousands of items I collected, only 2 were useful. One of these was a meditation ability that worked as a radar, revealing the location of the overwhelming amounts of useless shit I'd yet to pick up. The only caveat being that I'd have to stop moving for a few seconds to use the ability, turning basic movement into a stop-and-start affair as frustrating as watching a DVD you find at the bottom of a toddler's toy box. The second not useless item was basically the set of keys used to unlock other areas. Unfortunately, all this did was add to the pile of pointless crap to collect. I would be lying if I said picking up shit, even just to clear it off my screen, doesn't tickle a bit of my inner OCD. However, when I can honestly say that I'd have a much more fun and rewarding experience by fucking going outside and picking up literal rubbish, I can safely deduce that Paradise Killer's gameplay has more flaws in it than my YouTube-funded retirement plan. I assumed the 80s vaporware aesthetic was going to be the low-hanging fruit for this review. To my surprise, it didn't immediately send me back to the psych ward. Fake 80s music typically brings out those murder-centric voices, but the soundtrack actually sounded like run-of-the-mill uplifting 80s jazzy pop. A pleasant escape from the usual pretend 80s cacophony of synthesizers apparently allergic allergic to a major key. The art direction was, overall, well, a fucking blowjob compared to the story, almost comparable to icing on top of a fresh dog nard. When it comes to looks, OBRA DINN is, well, not hideous, a little overweight, and you probably want some generous mood lighting. However, it has the most important thing in a relationship, personality. Paradise Killer is more like the conventionally gorgeous girl with a casual drug addiction, who's only into an ugly sod like you so she can get back at her slightly tapped ex. And I mean, we all know fat chicks give better head anyway.
The idea is to avoid what we call info dumps, particularly at the start of a story.